Hello and welcome back to the Odds Now YouTube channel or the Odds Now X page, depending on where you're watching us, for the latest edition of the EFL Betting Show. I'm Matt Hill and I'm delighted to be joined once again by my regular co-host and the man in form, Mr. Gab Sutton. If you did watch last week's show, I really hope you noted down some of Gab's suggestions because he had a full house, 3 out of 3. That means under our new profit and loss recording system, he got all of his singles up and the treble, which has put him miles in the green for the season ahead. Now, will Gab choose to sort of take the defensive approach now, go a bit safer, protect his lead, or will he keep banging in those big prices? You'll find out over the next half an hour or so. But Gab, great to have you back this week, mate, and fantastic work on the tips last week, 3 out of 3.
Thank you. Yeah, what to have? So Jay's Cabia to score any time for Grimsby.
These are Gab's picks.
Wimbledon clean sheet. I'm pretty proud of that because I was really impressed with their organisation at Luton on the opening night. So that didn't come as a huge surprise. So that definitely shows you if you can pick up things in performances for teams that, you know, in previous games where it didn't quite come off, but they're looking pretty close. You can use that to apply it for the next week. And yeah, I'm very happy with that. And Jay's Cabia, annoyingly with Cabia, they've now shortened it to 7-5, so it was 11-4 last week, but it seems like scoring 2 weeks running is the cut-off point for the traders. At that point they sort of cotton on to them, so not as much value in the Jays Cabia pick this weekend, but yeah, really pleased with that one and the Wimbledon clean sheet.
Yeah, and let's gloss over Southampton quickly because we were both very bullish on them and they took until the last seconds to win it with the Jack Stevens goal, but yeah, a winner's a winner. Nobody cares now. It's in the books. And Gab, fantastic work. That does mean that Gab had a 17.7 to 1 treble win last week. For myself, it was a better showing, but still not quite that full house. I had a couple of winners with Southampton to win and under 4.5 goals at even money. Chesterfield beat Cheltenham quite comfortably at 21-20, but it was that Peterborough double chance against Luton. Gab, you tried to talk me out of it. And I got to be honest, I did come off the recording thinking, have I made an error with that one? And so it proved. I think it was 0-0 for a good portion of the game, but once Luton got that goal, you know, I think they were worthy winners in the end. So I'll take that on the chin. A profitable week, but could have been even better. So look, we're never ever going to sniff at a profit, but yeah, a little bit what could have been there for me last week. Gab is definitely the man in form, the man to catch. I'll get the full P&L totals updated on the oddsnow.com website. So if you ever want to check how profitable any of our contributors here at Odds Now are, you can head down to the About Us section of our website where you'll find all of our tipsters' profit and loss records in full. Okay, so if you're watching the EFL Betting Show for the first time, welcome along. It's pretty simple what we do here. Myself and Gab, we work our way through the Championship, League One and League Two, looking at the upcoming weekend's fixture slate and picking a bet from each division, which for our profit and loss records, we'll have a point on each as a single and half a point on our weekly treble. So without any further ado, we'll dive into it. Gab, I will put you into bat first, as always, sir. You've gone quite safe with this first pick, I think it's fair to say, but there's bigger prices to come, so we won't jump on Gab's back just yet. This is short, but it looks very solid. Derby versus Coventry, you're going to back under 2.5 goals in the match, 8-13, best price with Betfred. Tell us the thinking behind this one.
Yeah, I think I know Derby conceded 3 at Stoke on the opening day, but I do back John Eustace's sides to be very well organised, and certainly at Pride Park, where there'll be a great atmosphere for their first home game as well. I'm expecting a very organised performance. They've got a goalkeeper I like in Zetterstrom as well. They've got some good defenders too, and I think they're going to be a very experienced side that doesn't give much away this season. Whereas Coventry, I think, are a good footballing side that have some very appealing players in certain areas, but also are maybe missing that killer centre forward. They've actually got 4 strikers, but none of them are quite at the level they're looking for in terms of that number 9 role. Haji Wright being playing a slightly different role, if you like. So Coventry have their sort of issues up top, which was kind of highlighted really in their opening day goalless draw with Hull City, which probably surprised a lot of people, given that they would have been heavy favourites for that game. So yeah, I think I'll oppose goals in this one. I wouldn't. I don't know what the price is for under 1.5 because I wouldn't put people off that. I think I could see that one being either goalless or decided by a solitary strike for either team. But I've gone a little bit on the safer side with under 2.5 goals because I don't see this one being a goal fest.
Well, to be honest, Gab, when you've had the results you've had to start this season, you could do what you want, really, within reason. And don't worry, I will be on your back if those results turn. But under 1.5 goals is 2-1, so a lot more aggressive, and there is value possibly to be had for more ambitious punters there. But I think you're right here under 2.5 goals. There's a lot of angles in play there. Derby were sort of tipped up by a few as a potential dark horse or someone that could outrun their odds this season a little bit. I saw a couple of shrewd punters sort of putting them up as season handicap. John Eustace seems to be the crux of the reason why people are so sort of pro Derby. Tell us a little bit about your views of him as a coach.
Yeah, I think John Eustace is a top 6 championship manager. I think he's very pragmatic and he's able to get the best out of the players he has available. A lot of the time his teams go forward early and then play a bit of football in the opposing half, which I think can be the right way to go about it in an era where you get lots of coaches, don't you, who try to appeal to the higher ups, if you like. Look at me, I can play this exciting football. I'm being slightly derogatory there, but whereas I think John Eustace is not as much in that school of thought. He's more about how can I get results here, and I think that's made him more effective, both at Birmingham, at Blackburn, and at Derby County, because he's done very well in all 3 of his jobs. Derby, obviously, where he is at the moment. But I think with the Rams, they've got a very strong target man in Carlton Morris, who's very industrious. They've got Abo Adams, who's a real athlete as a kind of second striker, and then they've got really experienced defenders like Danny Bart, who will head everything away, and Matt Clark as well, who's been a very consistent championship defender over the years. I don't think they've got a huge amount of depth. But I think that under John Eustace, his teams can be above the sum of their parts. Now, how far above the sum of their parts is depends on your perspective. I had Derby about 14th this season. There's people who have gone with more like a 10th or a 9th because of the Eustace factor, which I can understand why. But then I'd sort of balance that with the fact that in terms of squad depth, they've not got a huge amount. And there's players there who are maybe in the twilight years of their careers. So it's not a hugely exciting squad, but sometimes, when you've got a great manager, they can perform above the sum of their parts, and that's what they're going to be hoping to do with John Eustace in charge.
Yeah, they're certainly one of the teams I'm keeping an eye on. I'm very cautious of taking on this season from a personal perspective. I really, when there's a manager you rate highly, you do have to tread with a little bit of caution. I do think I'd concur, one of the best at this level based on all the evidence we've had over the last few seasons. Okay, then, so 8-13 pick for Gab to open it up. I'm going at the other end of the scale. I've gone for a bit of a swinger here in the Championship. It's Sheffield United's game that I'm going to focus on. And disastrous start to the season for Sheffield United, wasn't it? I don't think anybody... I should say there's been sort of juxtaposing views on Sheffield United, I think, among a few people that are coming into this season. I think externally, everyone just kind of expects them to remain this sort of promotion challenging top 6 rock solid team to squad that got 90 plus points last season, and that they're well equipped for this division. But on the other side of it, I think internally, I'm just sensing a little bit of nervousness and unease about the situation. Yeah. Obviously, club legend in Chris Wilder leaving the club, and that always makes it a tough job for the incoming man, which in this case is Ruben Sellés. I personally think Sellés is a great coach. I've been impressed with everything he's done. He's worked in some very tough spots and tough conditions, particularly at Reading comes to mind. But he tends to find a way, doesn't he, of getting his influence on the squad. Very good at working with young players and bringing them on. But I think this is possibly the toughest job of his career to date, Sellés, in that there's high expectation, a little bit of unease among the fan base. And if he's not competing for promotion after 10, 15 games, he'll be really under pressure. So I'm hoping he can get it right early. A disastrous start at Bristol City. They lost 4-1 at home. Now, I thought Bristol City were very good, but I think if you look at the underlying numbers of the game, it does kind of confirm something to me where I think they only created 1.3 goals worth of XG, Bristol City. And when you think about the goals, it's not hard to see why, because Scott Twines was a world-class free kick and a heavily deflected effort. McCrory's finish was exceptional, but 9 times out of 10, that probably gets smashed wide or dragged wide. So I think everything did go right in front of goal for Bristol City, but there was still some concerning signs for Sheffield United. Now, I don't think it's as bad as things look. And then the 6-4 about Sheffield United this weekend would tempt me because they're playing Swansea, and I've not been particularly impressed with Swansea thus far this season. We're still very early into it, of course, but 1-0 loss at Middlesbrough. They created next to nothing. I think it was 0.2 XG, and Middlesbrough only a slither more and got the win. Now, Alan Sheehan, as a player, I absolutely loved him. I had an absolute wand of a left foot, and a really fantastic guy. Every time I listen to him, I enjoy him. He did a great job coming in as caretaker. But I don't know about you, Gav. I'm very cautious when you translate a caretaker job into taking the reins full time. It's a very different thing now, and I worry a little bit for Swansea this season. I hope Sheehan can do better than I'm kind of expecting them to do. But all told, in a nutshell, this looks like a good opportunity for Sheffield United to bounce back. I think Sellers, he sort of talked to his players on the pitch after the game as well, which was a bit of an interesting move. But I think he probably knows that they don't have a lot of time to get things going here. He needs a big performance from them. And the one player I thought emerged from this game with a lot of credit for Sheffield United was Callum O'Hare. Now, to me, he's a player that's absolutely tailor-made for Sellers' type of football. Sort of high energy, high press, winning the ball back, but also very good when he has the ball at using it effectively. He got the assist for Tyrese Campbell's equaliser last time out. He looks like he's going to be playing in that kind of advanced, almost a 10 role, which I think is his best position. And I also think that O'Hare is a bit of a confidence player. I remember him in the playoff semi-finals against Bristol City. I think he got an assist in both legs, was excellent in both games there. He started well here with another assist against Bristol City again. And I do think that he's one of these sort of streaky players who, when he's got the team built around him and he's confident, he's very, very hard to stop. So I'm having a look around about the goal scorer and the assist prices for O'Hare, and I noticed this 6-1 with live score bet, which is quite a bit ahead of all the other books, many of them at sort of 4-1 region. It just feels big for me against the Swansea side. I've got a lot of reservations over. I feel like anything good from Sheffield United in the next few weeks is probably going to come from O'Hare, just because he fits this system so well. He's playing in a nice position. And I do like the Sheffield United forward options in terms of finishing these chances off. I mean, it was a very confident finish from Campbell at the weekend. And I just think when I add all the bits together, that I'm expecting improvement from Sheffield United, that I'm not sure about Swansea, and that O'Hare played so well in defeat last week. I think this 6-1 has tempted me in for a little chance.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about Sheffield United is lots of criticism for their defending against Bristol City, and I totally agree. It was an absolute mess at the back. They had Reece Norrington-Davies, who's actually a left back or a wing back, and probably for a lot of blades, maybe not up to championship level in that position, and he's playing as a left side defender. And for some reason, goodness knows why, the Sheffield United board have had 2 years to sign a proper centre half. They haven't replaced Harry Souttar, 2 windows, to replace Harry Souttar, who got injured. They've needed one since Boxing Day, and that's that aerially dominant centre half, and they've not done it. And I think that's a real problem for Sheffield United. And I do sometimes feel with the board that they're looking for these really innovative solutions, like using AI in recruitment and things like that. But I sometimes do think that there's an element of Occam's razor with your decision making, which is actually sometimes go for the simpler option and do the things that are obvious and right in front of you. On the flip side of that, I also really like some of the football, and they were a team that made an impression on me as an in-possession entity. But that I worry that some of that work that we're seeing from Ruben Sellers could be undermined if they don't add, in key areas like defence, because I think I've heard that they're not going to sign any more players between now and the end of the window, and I think that could be a big mistake. So, yeah, so I think they've got a good coach in place, but I'm concerned that he's not getting the support that he needs.
Yeah, it's a shame, because ultimately Sellers' head will be on the block if they're not up where they need to be, and I guess that is the life of a manager. But he probably felt like he couldn't say no to this job. It's a great opportunity for him, a chance to get up into the Premier League. And I do really, really rate him as a coach. And I think we'll see, I agree with what you're saying there. I think we'll see the good side of Sheffield United in the coming weeks going forward. It's just whether it gets undone at the other end of the pitch a little bit. So I'm probably going to end up playing Sheffield United in this kind of angle where I want to get with their forward players to produce, but I maybe don't want to back them to win matches with any confidence. I mean, Swansea, I would one of the teams I would take them on with. The 6-4, it did tempt me because I think if Sheffield United do put in an improved defensive performance, they should win this game. But yeah, I thought I would play the attackers at the prices. And like I say, O'Hare, he's been unlucky with injuries during his time at Coventry, missed a lot of games for 2 seasons with cruciate and hamstring problems. But he had a full season under his belt last year, but I never felt like he got up to his brilliant best up until the very sort of back end of the season. And now I think clearly Sellers believes in him. Like I said, I think he's made for this style of play, playing in his preferred position. I really like him as a player. I think he's a live wire, and I think he's got that little bit of quality. If Swansea are going to play sort of defensively, they only gave up 0.4's worth of XG to Middlesbrough, so they're going to probably try and sit back. O'Hare is the kind of man that can unpick a defence with a little moment of brilliance. So I think that 6-1 looks big to me. That's how I'm going to be playing it anyway. We shall dive into League One, Gab, where you've gone more aggressive with your pick here. You've gone for 7-4 chance, which is Huddersfield to beat Blackpool. 7-4 with Betfred. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, so I think Huddersfield, I'm surprised they're as big as 7-4. If I was in the trader's shoes pricing this one up, you don't want to react too much to the first 2 games for either side because, Huddersfield winning 2, Blackpool losing 2. But I think to have them as 7-4 and to not even as favourites, I think it's probably a bit of a step too far. I think I would have had them more like maybe 13-10 at the biggest. I don't think I'd have had them 17-4. I think that feels that's almost slightly shorter than 2-1 really. Surprised about that. I really like how Huddersfield have come together. They've not just won their first 2 games, but they've won without conceding. They've scored 3 and 2 in those games. So it really, and they've beaten Leicester in the League Cup as well. And there's a real sign that Lee Grant snapped his ideas straight from the off. He's obviously a good coach, as he proved working under Kieran McKenna at Ipswich. And also the new signings like Joe Lowe, like Ryan Ledson, Mikael Miller, they've all made that sort of instant impact, which is really encouraging. So, I think Huddersfield are very underrated for this one, and I'm not sure they're going to be 7-4 in too many more games between now and the end of the season. Just pause now.
Yeah, 7-4. It does look a big price when you consider that Huddersfield have been, in recent weeks, backed into the second favourites for the League One title. Clearly, punters are impressed with what they've seen so far. It's still very early days for Lee Grant, but there was a few eyebrows raised at that appointment, Gab. But, I mean, he's highly thought of in coaching circles, and the early signs are very promising.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Matt, but it does often feel like coaches who have got a really good coaching background, as opposed to proven in the hot seat, often get sort of favoured for jobs in a way that managers who have got a certain CV in the hot seat you would think would get the jobs more often. But football seems to be moving more towards prioritising coaching credentials rather than managerial ones. And I think there's ups and downs to that, because sometimes you can be a really good coach and really good as a number 2, but maybe not have those man management qualities and those certain extra ingredients to be the number 1. And I think there's always a risk with that. But I think if they show that they've got the right qualities, then sometimes it can be worth the risk. We've seen Chris Davis, haven't we, at Birmingham City? He'd been in the backroom staff. But I do think what's important is coaches who have worked in a first-team environment where it's fast-paced, it's high-pressured. I think if you recruit coaches straight from youth team football into the hot seat in senior football, in my experience, that can be a big jump. Whereas I think if you go from being, first team coach or an assistant to being a number 1 somewhere, I think that's an easier transition.
Yeah, well, the price certainly does look interesting. I think if Huddersfield are the real deal, then you won't be getting 7-4 for them against sort of mid-table sides, with the best respect to Blackpool. But I think if they are as good as the numbers are suggesting they might be, then that might look a bit of a snip of a price. So I quite like that play, Gab. Huddersfield to beat Blackpool, 7-4, best price available with Betfred. For me in League One, then, I'm going to keep it quite simple. I'm going for a home win here. Lincoln to beat Plymouth catches my eye at just the shade over evens, 21-20. This is a little bit pro Lincoln and it's a little bit anti Plymouth, to be honest. So I could kind of give my workings out here. And Lincoln, I generally think we touched on them a little bit last week, I think, Gavin. It's just like very impressive sort of club the way they run. I think they're probably getting towards the top of where they can go with their financial resources, pushing for promotion to the championship. We all know it's a different world once you get into the championship in terms of finances and stuff, but they're certainly one of the very solid sides in League One that you always expect to be in amongst that sort of 6th to 12th, bottom of the top half kind of section. And I looked at their home record last season. It was really decent, 7 losses from 23 games, which puts them just outside the playoffs in terms of home form. I think they conceded and scored the 7th, came 7th out of 24 in both of those tables. So their home form pretty much is playoff level at League One. And they're hosting a Plymouth side here who, I don't want to say they're in disarray. I think that's probably a bit dramatic, but given that they were coming in as back in June, most were considering Plymouth as genuine title contenders this season. Then they lose Miron Muslic. I don't think they've necessarily made a bad appointment on the face of it with Tom Cleverley, because I think, he did well at Watford and I think he's clearly an intelligent guy, but he seems to have come in and been dealt a bit of a bad hand there to me. They've not really backed him in terms of the players they've lost versus replacements. I think he's still talking about needing more players in, and the early results have been a little bit humbling, I think, for Plymouth fans who were very hopeful about this season. They've lost 3-1 at home to Barnsley, beaten by Bolton 2-0. And I don't think we can massively read into their League Cup win against QPR, where they came from 2-0 down to win 3-2, because there's a massive asterisk next to that. QPR's average age, I think, was 19 on Tuesday night, and that included a 31-year-old goalkeeper. So there was a lot of kids in that team. It was
17 otherwise.
Well, exactly. It was literally debutants being handed out to 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and I read the Loft for Words blog.
Brilliant, Clive, brilliant, by the way.
Oh, fantastic! Really enjoy reading that, and he made some entertaining quips about it, but he did ultimately conclude that the QPR side fielded were just out of their depth and did well to get a 3-2 defeat. So I don't sort of trust that as a form line for Plymouth improving or anything. And I think traditionally over the last few years, Plymouth, for all their success, they've not been the best travellers at the best of times. And there's still that undercurrent of a lot of that squad still knocking around where, maybe you're going away from home and you're not that confident about getting a result. And I feel like Sincil Bank's not a place you want to be going to and not being confident and clear in your game plan, because Lincoln are really efficient on their own turf. Michael Scabala, really good technical coach. He's got them really, really well drilled. And, I read in his comments from their first couple of games, I think he's very content with where his side are at, knows exactly what he wants from them. I think they'll be well drilled for this. I'm a little bit surprised we're getting over even money. I give Lincoln more than a 50% chance of winning this game in the current state of both clubs. So keep it very simple here and go for a home win.
Yeah, absolutely. What I also really like is the flexibility in Lincoln City's system, because they're a 4-2-3-1, but they've got a very attacking right back in Tendai Darikwa, who's incredibly fit for his age and sets a real example. But they've got Rob Street, who's a centre forward on the right. But so it's basically like a 4-2-3-1 that can convert into a sort of 3-4-1-2 system, if you like, with kind of 2 up top. And it's sort of and so I think there's a flexibility there where the players suit the players around them, if you know what I mean, because each movement complements the movement of the player around them, which kind of speaks to, I think, Yeah, great coaching and also a really joined up recruitment process as well. So from that point of view, I think Lincoln City are a good team to get on side, because I always think that smart, well-run clubs that maybe aren't the biggest at the level, they can get sometimes underestimated by the traders, because the name Lincoln City doesn't carry an awful lot of weight at League One level, but that's where you can maybe get a bit of value on them. So, if it was a bigger club playing Plymouth at home in Argyle circumstances, maybe there'd be odds on, and that's the kind of thing where you can get a bit of value, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, look, you're right in what you're saying, but for those who aren't that sort of well versed on betting markets and how they move, there's often late moves on the Saturday before games kick off, and Lincoln are the kind of team that the big syndicates will come for and back late, because, like you say, the price is often a little bit more generous than it should be. And this feels like one of those games to me where on paper you're looking at it and thinking, yeah, okay. But actually, when you drill down into the situations of both clubs and the consistency of Lincoln, particularly at home, I think they've got the tools to get the job done here. And north of double your money, I think it's a really solid pick. So that's my take on League One then. Just League Two, and then we will round up this week's picks along with our best prices for our respective trebles. Gab, I put Chesterfield up to success last week, and you're going to try and do the same again here. This is the third week running that I've talked about Chesterfield, and I'm going to do it again. I think they're the value in the League Two title race. I've backed them myself, and I do genuinely think for all of MK Dons' brilliant match winners, and for some of the the chasing packs promise, I just think Chesterfield are rock solid in this league.
100%, Matt. And I can bring a bit of first-hand knowledge to this, having watched them at Cheltenham last week. And do you know what it felt like? You know how sometimes you see a high-profile tennis player playing somebody, who's kind of more low-profile in the early rounds, and sometimes in the early games, if you like, they're managing their energy levels, and they're sort of weathering the early storm, and then because they back themselves with their stamina to grow into it. And that's exactly what I saw from Chesterfield at Cheltenham, where they sort of had an early storm that they had to weather in the first 10 or 15 minutes, where Cheltenham actually started quite well. And then they grew into the first half and probably shaded it. And then in the second half, they just took complete control, and the likes of Dylan Markande really came to the party. Lovely free kick as well from Dylan Duffy. But the one who really stood out to me was Carl McFadzean, because I think this is a centre-half that's got recent successful experience in the Championship. Like, it's only 2023 where Carl McFadzean was part of a Coventry City squad that reached the playoff final. And he's still got that just incredible awareness where he just so composed. It always seems to clean things up so well and just reads the game so intuitively. And I think he's probably one of the best. I remember watching Carl Pejani play for Stevenage a couple of years ago. He's probably one of the best League Two centre-halves I've seen, live in that sort of time. So, yeah, Carl McFadzean was unbelievable. And actually, if you look at Chesterfield's first two games, they've not conceded yet, and there's evidence to suggest that that's quite sustainable, because if you look at the XG of the opposition, I imagine that's extremely low, both for Cheltenham and for Barrow, who they played on the opening day. So they're very good at keeping teams at arm's length. And they're facing a Bristol Rovers side that have had a really poor start. Darrell Clarke is a very instinctive manager who likes to call things out very early, which can be a double-edged sword, because if he gets it right, then he nips problems in the bud. But then if he gets it wrong, he can rub people up the wrong way, and it can go either way sometimes with him. So I'm a little bit concerned about some of the mentality issues. You look at Darrell Clarke in his first stint at Bristol Rovers, he had a core of leaders: Mark McChrystal, Tom Lockyer, Stuart Sinclair, to name a few. This year, I don't think he has that core of leaders. I think there's probably more individual ability in this Bristol Rovers squad than the last one that he had, but they're nowhere near the same in terms of the intangibles, and that's what makes a Darrell Clarke team tick, and that's missing at the moment. So Chesterfield for me to win to 0 at 2-1. I'm all over that one.
Yeah, I must say, when you sent your prices over, that was the one that stood out to me. I've already sung the praises of Chesterfield, but I'll probably continue to do so throughout the season. I really do think they're geared up to go really, really well in this league under Paul Cook, and it's certainly been a promising start. Just to back up what you were saying, Gab, 0.6 worth of XG in both of their games conceded. So they're really, really controlling things. Even in the midweek cup loss to Mansfield, they managed to lose 2-0 despite giving up less than a goal's worth of XG. So, they're on the edge of some clinical finishing there, but nothing to be concerned about. And this looks to me, I'd agree with you with Darryl Clark as well. A fantastic manager, but I always think he's emotions led, and like you say, when he calls people out, you need a certain level of bond and trust with your players for that to always have the desired effect. So I will interestingly watch how Bristol Rovers progress in the next few weeks. But I think Chesterfield look rock solid here, and I quite like the 2-0 element as well at home. So we shall see. 2-1, nice pick. My final one in League Two to round off this week's show. I'm going for Crewe to beat Crawley, but I'm going to back them with a -1 handicap to boost the price because they are odds on. Now you're getting north of 5-2 here, 13-5 for Crewe -1 here. And I think this is a classic case of a side with their tails up, who having started really, really well against a side. Again, don't want to say disarray too early for that, but it's not been a good start for Crawley, has it? It's not been the start Scott Lindsay would have hoped for. Let's talk about Crewe first. I think they've been really, really good under Lee Bell thus far. Obviously, they had a lot of questions to answer coming into this season. Started so promisingly last year and then really fell off a cliff in the back end of the campaign. I was a little bit giving them a watching brief on week one. So when they racked up nearly 4 goals worth of XG winning at Salford, I sort of stood up and took attention, thought, wow, that was a really, really good performance. And then they backed it up with a really comfortable 2-0 home win since. So I do like what I've seen from Crewe thus far. Obviously, early pace setters. And I think that confidence is a big thing at this time of the season. If you've won a couple of games and you're playing a team that's lost a couple of games, as is the case here, that really makes a difference to how the match starts, I think. Crawley would probably take a point here just to get up and running, wouldn't they? Whereas Crewe, they're flying high. They want to go out and get after them. And I could see a fast start here. And that's why the handicap angle comes in for me, because I think if Crewe do go 1-0 up within the first 10, 15 minutes, it's a really, really tough job for Crawley to stop that game getting out of hand. We've talked about Crawley last week, I think, Gab, one of the hardest teams to kind of assess going into this season. I mean, you could say that for Crewe as well, to be fair, but like Crawley in particular, because there's the usual kind of noise off the pitch with Wagner United and little changes being made, and you don't know who's getting interfered in what sort of thing in the background. Sure. But then the big positive was, Scott Lindsay's back. It's only a couple of seasons ago he guided them on a shoestring budget to an unbelievable promotion. He's a great fit for the club. You're thinking he can come in and have that galvanising effect, maybe get them, going close to a repeat. But I think the first couple of fixtures, very worrying signs. They were absolutely thumped by Grimsby on the opening day. No shame on that, because Grimsby look a good side this year, but it was a really one-sided affair. And then to go and lose 2-1 at home to Newport last week, they were odds on for that game. I think a couple of our punters panelists last week said they would be the favourite. They would not touch with a barge pole, and so it proved. Newport getting the win. I watched Scott Lindsay's interview after the game, and he was kind of like just saying, we absolutely dominated. We missed gilt edge chance after chance and stuff. And I looked, and the stats favoured them, and they had a lot of the possession, but I don't think it was like a drubbing. Maybe a little bit of a smash and grab, but that's what Newport do so effectively. I think they're one of the best smash and grab sides in the EFL, to be honest. The amount of times that they go and win games by an odd goal that you don't really expect them to. That's kind of how they've managed to survive in League Two in the last couple of years. So, I'm a bit worried about Crawley, and I think this is a bad fixture for them. So, like I say, I'm sensing Crewe will want to start this on the front foot. If they get that early goal, this could be another long afternoon for the Red Devils, and I think 13-5 has tempted me in on the handicap.
Do you know the other thing about Crawley? They're playing Harry McCurdy. You'll remember him from his
I remember him well, yeah.
His time at Carlisle. For some reason, he's playing as a wing-back at the moment.
Well, that is a disaster waiting to happen, I tell you.
Not quite sure about that. Whether he's quite got the the industry and the professionalism required to go.
I wouldn't say discipline was McCurdy's strength. Not
the first word that springs to mind, is it?
No, look, Gab, he's a great player. There's no one could doubt his talent. But I think everybody who's ever encountered Harry McCurdy knows that his pitfalls are pretty clear to see. And and he's another one that in a winning team, great player to have when you're struggling and the chips are down. Can down tools, can throw strops. So I think big weeks for for Scott Lindsay. It's going to define their season, I think, early. I think if they don't pick up a win soon, if they lose for the first 4 or 5, it's going to be really tough to turn this around, I think. So, yeah, and I just think this is bad timing with this Crewe fixture. I think that if it was at home for Crawley, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But I think going to Crewe at the moment with their tails up, and they played Stockport in the League Cup in midweek, and they lost 3-1. But it was a good game, a good close game, and I think Stockport are one of the best sides in League One. So obviously a bit of rotation on both sides, but they both played football, and it looked a good close game with chances at both ends and stuff. So yeah, I think Crewe come into this game in a great headspace, and I think that it only takes an early goal for this to become another good afternoon for them and another bad one for the visitors.
Absolutely.
Okay, then. So that does us for our selections this week. Let me, without any further ado, bring you up our picks onto the screen so we could just do a little bit of a summary and you could see where we're at for this week. So, Gab, we'll go first with yourself. Mm-hmm. You've gone safe-ish in the Championship with Derby versus Coventry, under 2.5 goals at 8-13. More aggressive in League One, where you think Huddersfield are good value at 7-4 to beat Blackpool, and you're going for Chesterfield to beat Bristol Rovers 0 at 2-1. That is an early kickoff, I believe, by the way. So anyone that does want to get Gab's treble on, you'll need to do so before 12:30. That is a 6.7-1 treble with Betfred. Gab, I've already said I really love the Chesterfield selection. Do you have a favourite pick or a nap from this week?
I think I would go with Huddersfield at 7-4. I'm feeling good about them. I don't think they're going to be as big as 7-4 in many games between now and the end of the season.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm trying to pick holes in it, but you're in such good form, and they look good picks. So we'll see. Could another full house be awaiting for Gab potentially? I've had no winners on week 1, 2 winners on week 2, so hopefully we continue going in the right direction here. I'd probably take 2, to be honest, because this Callum O'Hare bet is a bit of a swing. You're always having a swing at 6-1, but I've given my reasons. I think he's well tailored for this Sellers formation, and I think Swansea a gettable opposition for Sheffield United this weekend. So 6-1 on a Callum O'Hare assist there with live score bet. I really do fancy Lincoln to beat Plymouth at double your money, 21-20, and Crewe -1 handicap versus Crawley at 13-5 for a slightly sort of ambitious play, but one that I could definitely see panning out, and it gives me a monstrous 42.9-1 treble at live score bet. If I can land that, Gab, I think I'll probably overtake you. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But any of my picks you like, or?
I think I'm feeling good about Crewe Alexandra. They've done well in the loan market, I believe, to sign Tommy O'Reilly and Emre Tezgel, two very highly rated youngsters from Aston Villa and Stoke respectively, and secondly 2 players who've already got that bit of senior experience, which I think is really important with loans. So I think they're going to improve them, and they've also got some homegrown talent as usual in the likes of Owen Lunt and midfield, who did really well on the opening day as well. So yeah, I'm excited about Crewe. I would go, I like your 13-5, backing them via the -1 handicap.
Good. Well, if I get the 13-5 up, then I'm not losing money on the week, so that'll be a good result. I think anytime we make a profit is happy days, really. So hope you've enjoyed this week's EFL Betting Show. Of course, it goes without saying, please do gamble responsibly. If you are having a bet this weekend, we'll be tweeting out all the selections as well. Gab's column is following this week. He's got a regular weekly column over on oddsnow.com. And we've got our punters panel going live on Friday, where we have 5 footballing brains trying to point you in the direction of some winners for the upcoming weekend. So do head over to oddsnow.com. Do give us a subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks very much for watching.